Esselamu aleyküm ve rahmetullahi ve berekatühü. Euzubillahimineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Sevgili kardeşlerim,
My dear brothers and sisters, friends of my life, friends of my heart,
sonsuz hamd ve şükrederim.
I thank and praise Allah Ta'ala countless times that one more time
Zikir sohbetinde
we are all together at the Discourse to talk about Allah,
Allah'tan bahsetmek için,
to do the zikr of Allah, to talk about commands of Allah,
Allah'ın söylediklerinden bahsetmek için.
to talk about what Allah says.
Sevgili kardeşlerim,
My dear brothers and sisters,
yaşamak eğer Allah için yaşamaksa
if the living is living for Allah,
tadına doyum olmayan bir dünyada yaşarsınız.
then you live in a world that is worthy of living.
Allah Teala her alanda sizi kuşatır.
Allah will be surrounding you in every aspect.
Her zaman yapılması lazım gelen istikamette
You always feel things, whatever you need to do every second.
sevgili kardeşlerim, Allah her zaman
My dear brothers and sisters,
verdir.
Allah is always with you.
Ve liyakatiniz hangi ölçüde artarsa
And the more you increase your worthiness,
değişir.
Allah gets closer to you.
Daha güzele doğru gider.
It becomes better and better with that.
Ona yaklaştıkça öyle bir zamana doğru gidersiniz ki
As you get closer to Him, you come to a point that
neye başlarsınız?
you start hearing Him.
Onun söylediklerini
Your heart starts hearing
kalbinize,
clearly what He says.
suallerinize cevap almaya
You start receiving answers to your questions.
başlarsınız.
And that is the happiest time of your life,
Dilediğinizden konuşabilmek imkanının
to be able to talk to Allah whenever you want. Then you will also start saying, is everything so wonderful, or is it only me, my dear brothers and sisters?
bunun için tek bir yol var.
There is only one way to that,
Çoğaltmak,
to increase your zikr more, more and more.
zikriniz arttıkça
As your zikr increases,
artar.
you get closer to Allah.
Zikir sizi Allah'a yaklaştıran en kıymetli
Zikr
manyetik alandır.
is the most important concept that brings you closer to Allah.
Zikir hangi seviyede
In what level you can increase your zikr,
artar? Daimi
your friendship to Allah increases at the same level. With continuous zikr, you're constantly with Allah.
onunla konuşmak imkanınız oluşur.
You have the ability to talk to Him constantly. You get commands directly from Him,
Lazım gelen her şeyi yaparsınız.
and you do everything that is necessary.
Size doğrudan kumanda eder.
If Allah wills, directly controls you.
Her şeye kadirdir.
He is omnipotent.
Ne olur kişi? Tasarrufta olur.
That means you are under tasarruf. You are within the control of Allah.
Bunların hepsi
My dear brothers and sisters,
birer bölümü.
these are all parts of life.
Allahsız bir hayat
Life without Allah is not life.
insanı insan yapan şey
What makes human beings a human being
Allah'ın kendi suretinde yarattığı insanı insan yapan şey
what makes a human being that Allah created in His own form is his relationship with Allah and level of that relationship.
Allah'ı sever diye bir cevap gelecek.
Do you love Allah? Well, everybody will say, of course, everybody loves Allah.
Ama ne?
I'm sure you all love Allah. But how much do you love Allah?
İşte sevginizin seviyesi
The level of your love
için yaptığınız zikir sayısıyla
is based on the number of zikr you do for Allah. Those who love Allah the most
sahipleri
are the owners of continuous zikr.
de kendi gayretiyle daima daimi zikre
Nobody can get to continuous zikr with their own efforts.
gayret mutlaka olacak.
Of course, there will be efforts,
Daha üst boyutta
personal efforts, that you will put
Allah'ın yardımı da
more and more.
olacaktır.
But of course, you will get the help of Allah.
Sabah namazına uyandığınız zaman
In a way, when you wake up for morning prayer, you will realize that you're waking up still doing zikr of Allah.
sevgili kardeşlerim,
My dear brothers and sisters,
Allah ile insan arasındaki ilişkiler
the relationship between human being and Allah
sevdiğine
shows how much the individual loves Allah.
esas alan bir hüviyet arz eder.
It will be very clear to know that
Böyle bir dizaynda kişi Allah'ı
within such a design,
seviyorsa
the more the individual loves Allah,
kadar çok sevdiğini fark edecek.
that individual will realize that's how much Allah loves that individual back.
Bir gün Allah'la konuşmaya başlayacaktır.
One day he will start talking to Allah.
Kapılar herkese
My dear brothers and sisters, the doors are wide open for everyone. Everyone who gets to continue zikr has the ability to talk to Allah.
bundan evvel de Allah'ın uygun görmesi
Even before that, if Allah approves,
kişinin mümkün olabilir.
that might be possible for the individual to talk to Allah. Yet,
Bir işaret.
continuous zikr has a clear sign of that.
Ne diyor Allah Teala?
What is it that Allah Ta'ala says?
Ve
Do zikr of Allah when you are standing, sitting and lying on your sides.
zikredin. Bir dördüncü hüviyet yok insan için. Ya ayakta
There is no fourth condition for an individual.
ya da yatıyordur.
Either the individual is standing up, sitting down, or lying down.
Yarın
Why does Allah Ta'ala says lying on the sides? Because when you are lying on your side, your ear is on the pillow and you will hear your heartbeats.
İşte bu kalp atışlarında Allah,
With every heartbeat, you will say Allah, Allah, Allah.
diye dilinizi bile kımıldatmadan
Even without using your tongue, you can do the zikr of Allah.
isterseniz
Either saying Allah loud, Allah, Allah, Allah, Allah, or silent,
diyerek isterseniz dilinizi de
or even without using the tongue.
Allah'ın ismini tekrar ederek
You can repeat the name of Allah.
yaşantınızı yaşamaya değer bir mutlulukla
And that way, you embellish your life with a joy that is worthy of living.
Allah Teala
My dear brothers and sisters,
zikredin
Allah gave the command saying, do zikr, that's one.
diyor.
Allah Ta'ala says, do much zikr, two.
Ayaktayken de otururken de
Also says,
yatarken de
do zikr when you are standing, sitting, and lying on your sides, three.
daimi zikir. Bir insan
The third one is the continuous zikr. An individual is either standing up, sitting down, or lying down.
yan üstü yatmak demek
Allah Ta'ala wants us to lie on our sides, which means one of our ear will be on the pillow.
kalbinizin
Then you will hear your heartbeats.
İşte bu tempoya
Based on that rhythm,
Allah'ı zikredeceksin.
you will do zikr of Allah.
Zikir boyunca mutlu bir insansınız.
Throughout the zikr, you're a happy individual.
Sevgili kardeşlerim,
My dear brothers and sisters,
Allah ile bile olmak,
to be with Allah,
Allah ile birlikte olmak,
to be alone with Allah,
Allah'ı hissetmeye çalışmak.
trying to feel Allah.
Eğer zikrinizi daimi zikre ulaştırırsanız
If you can bring your zikr
mutlaka Allah
to a continuous zikr stage, then you will certainly have the ability to talk to Allah.
şeyi söyler.
He will tell you constantly everything.
Bundan daha evvelki devrelerde de
Even at earlier stages,
ulaşmadan evvel de
in other words, even before getting to continuous zikr, an individual may always talk to Allah.
yeter ki Allah Teala onu buna layık.
Only if Allah is considering the individual worthy to that.
Kalbinize bakar.
My dear brothers and sisters, Allah looks at your heart.
Diyor,
What do you have in your heart?
başlangıçta bütün kalpler
At the beginning, every heart is 100% full of vices.
zikri, çok zikri daim.
Why does Allah Ta'ala obligate zikr, much zikr and continuous zikr to every individual?
Fazılları,
Because zikr brings glories from the presence of Allah.
fazıllar
Virtues,
kalbine girer.
glories will penetrate your soul's heart and eliminate vices,
İşte
darknesses out of the soul's heart.
az zikirse
If the zikr is little bit of zikr,
nurla kaplanabilir.
more than half of your soul's heart will be covered with glories. If it is much zikr, then more than 80% of your soul's heart will be covered with glories. But if you have continuous zikr, 100% of your heart will be filled with glories of Allah.
Ulaşan kişi
Individual who is at continuous zikr stage
üzeridir. Her an
will be upon tesbih.
Allah'ı zikret.
The inner voice of that individual does zikr of Allah constantly.
Noktaya kişi sesli zikirle ulaşmıştır.
The individual got to that point with loud zikr.
Gece zikrederek uyumuştur.
That individual goes to sleep in zikr at night, and when he wakes up, he still repeats the name of Allah, saying Allah, Allah, Allah, Allah.
Bunu defalarca yaşayan bir kişi
The individual who experiences that numerous times,
kesin bir
it becomes clear that individual was doing zikr of Allah even in his sleep.
Sevgili kardeşlerim,
My dear brothers and sisters, never forget, you are a human being.
olarak yaratıldınız.
You are created as a human being.
Ruhuna yuva teşkil eden tek
You have a body that hosts Spirit of Allah, and you're the only creature who's created with that, a human being.
ruhundan üfürür.
Because Allah Ta'ala only blows a spirit into human beings,
Yaşayanlara
not to the animals on land, in the sea, in the air. None of them receives the Spirit of Allah.
var.
There's only one creature that receives the Spirit of Allah,
İşte bu
and that is human being.
Allah Teala'ya sevgili kardeşlerim,
Therefore, it is not enough how much you thank and praise Allah Ta'ala, my dear brothers and sisters,
insan
simply because Allah Ta'ala created us as a human being.
insan olmak
To be a human being,
Allah'ın bir büyük nimeti
that is a great blessing of Allah,
zikretmek
and doing zikr of Allah
temel hedefi.
is the basic command of Allah.
Daimi zikir.
What does Allah Ta'ala want?
Her an
Allah Ta'ala wants us to get to continuous zikr
fazıllar
and constantly having glories of Allah coming into our soul's heart and being refreshed,
kesintisiz bir şekilde
and glories of Allah to remain in our soul's heart constantly, and not to leave any dark spot in our soul's heart that could allow vices to get back.
kalbimiz tamamen eski tabirle pür pak olsun.
For our heart to be pure glory.
Sevgili kardeşlerim,
My dear brothers and sisters,
o zaman siz de aynı şeyi söyleyeceksiniz.
then you will also say the same thing.
Her şey çok mu güzel?
Is everything so wonderful, or is it only me feeling this way?
Sevgili kardeşlerim, her şey
My dear brothers and sisters, at that point everything is so wonderful. It is not possible to express.
sevgili kardeşlerim,
My dear brothers and sisters,
Allah ile olan ilişkimiz
our relationship with Allah,
dünya üzerindeki en büyük nimettir.
and that is the greatest blessing that makes us happy.
Allah'ın sizinle konuştuğunu yaşadığınız an,
when you experience the feeling that Allah talks to you, that means the happiest time of your life. Then that will continue throughout your life.
Allah Teala size ehli zikir yapar.
Allah will make you ehli zikr.
Zikriniz her an Allah Teala'nın dizaynı içerisinde devam eder.
Your zikr continues constantly within the design of Allah.
Devamlı zikir gecesiz uykudayken de devam eder.
And this continuous zikr also carries on even when you are sleeping.
Çünkü bir süre sonra
My dear brothers and sisters, simply because after a while,
müdahale eder.
Allah will do something else with you.
Zikrinizi devam ettirmenizi Allah'ın yardımı gerçekleştirir.
It is Allah's help having you do zikr constantly.
Çalışmışsınızdır.
That means you're over the first stage.
Dahi zikre ulaşmak için gece gündüz çalışmışsınızdır.
That means you worked night and day to get to continuous zikr.
Uyandığınızda
One morning when you wake up,
Allah diye
you realize that you are still doing the zikr of Allah, saying Allah, Allah, Allah, Allah, Allah.
işte Allah Teala'ya en çok dua ettiğiniz, en çok şükrettiğiniz nokta
And that is the point that you think and praise Allah the most. Because the meaning of that is
Allah'ı zikrederek
you spend your night in zikr of Allah.
daimi zikrin başlangıç noktasındasınız.
You're at the beginning point of continuous zikr.
O hep devam ediyor.
After that point, that will continue throughout your life.
Allah kelimesinin
Whenever you listen yourself,
yeni
you realize that you are repeating the name of Allah, doing His zikr.
lütfü keremi
That is a blessing of Allah.
buyurduğu ikram.
That is a great blessing of Allah.
Sevgili kardeşlerim,
My dear brothers and sisters,
Allah için yaşamak
to live for Allah is a total concept
var.
that includes night and day.
Allah muhakkak ki hepinizi çok ama
Indeed, Allah loves you all very much.
sever.
He loves everyone.
İnsan olarak yaratıp da ruhundan bizatihi üfürdüğü
Whoever He created as a human being and blown into them
sevgili kardeşlerim
directly from His Spirit, wouldn't He love them?
diyor.
He blows into them directly from His Spirit,
İnsan
into one of His creature called human being. He blows into him directly from His Spirit.
bu sevgisinin en büyük belirtisi değil mi?
Isn't that a great sign of His love?
Sonra da o kişiyi yüceltmek istikametinde
Then in order to exalt that individual,
ruhunu Allah'a iade etmesini istiyor.
wants that spirit to be rendered back to himself before death.
Senin kalbini diyor
Allah Ta'ala says,
kaplayacak.
the glories will conquer your soul's heart with zikr.
Bundan rahmet, faz ve salavat isimli
Rahmah, fazl and salawat.
gelmesi söz konusu olabilir.
Glories will be coming to your soul's heart.
Fazıllar nefsin kalbini tamamen dolduran
Fazls, virtues will be conquering the soul's heart all the way to 98%. Initially 2% rahmah, mercy will be accumulating.
sevgili kardeşlerim,
My dear brothers and sisters,
Allah sizleri çok seviyor.
Allah loves you all very much.
Ama sizi
Is His love
insan olarak yaratmış.
vain? He created you as a human being,
Çok seviyor.
loves you all very much.
Eskiler ne diyorlar?
As the proverb goes, coffee comes from Yemen, and the nightingale comes from the rose. My dear brothers and sisters, even if it comes from Yemen or India, doesn't matter where it comes from, coffee is the drink of our ancestors. Therefore, I love coffee so much. It has a great smell and delicious taste. And our ancestors always used coffee for centuries. My dear brothers and sisters, is there any beautiful notion for human beings but love? How much do you love Allah? That is not something that you can prove saying that Allah I love so much. Within 24 hours of a day, how long do you do zikr of Allah? If you can do 12 hours of zikr, that means you love Allah 50%. After working on it so long, trying to increase your zikr, one day you will wake up still doing zikr. And what will that refer to, my dear brothers and sisters? That refers to you spending your night in zikr of Allah. If you are waking up for tahajjud in the middle of the night, that means the best design of Allah already took place. You are still doing zikr even when you are sleeping. And you wake up with zikr of Allah. Because you go to sleep doing zikr of Allah and you wake up doing zikr of Allah. And these are the ones that Allah loves the most, those who do zikr of Allah 24 hours a day. And of course, that takes place with the help of Allah. Those people do not push themselves to get to that point. Allah constantly helps them. And their souls' hearts are purified and for Allah now. The word Allah constantly echoes within their inner worlds. Sometimes their upper jaw touches their lower jaw. It is constantly in movement, but that movement is so little that majority of the people cannot even notice it. My dear brothers and sisters, as you get to know Allah, your happiness will increase constantly. Whoever may think that there are other ways of happiness, that individual should know that no, that is not the case. Happiness should be a continuous concept. And only if the individual does zikr 24 hours, then realizes that happiness is also 24 hours. The practice of that will give that great joy to that individual. And with great peace and happiness, the individual will continue doing that zikr, because the individual knows that it is the zikr making the individual feel happiness and peace. My dear brothers and sisters,
Daimi zikrin sahipleri de aynı olaylara her zaman
the owners of continuous zikr face pretty much the same consequences,
onlar da
just like everybody else.
takım güç standartlarla
They may go through hardships,
ama Allah'a güvenirler.
but they trust Allah
Allah'a dayalıdırlar.
and they get their support from Allah.
Haldirler.
They are constantly with Allah.
Allah için yaşadıkları cihetle
Since they live for Allah,
dünyadaki en mutlu insanları.
they are the happiest people in the world.
Daimi zikir bir insanın kalbindeki afetlerin hepsini
Continuous zikr eliminates every vice in the soul's heart.
hasletleri doldurur.
All vices are replaced with virtues.
Emirlerine karşı çıkan
Vices are always against the commands of Allah and they are willing to do what Allah prohibits.
nerede Allah'ın
Virtues, on the other hand,
gerçekleştirmeyen
are not willing to do what Allah prohibits and willing to do everything Allah commands.
İşte bir insanın nefsinin kalbi %100 hasretlerle donatıldığı zaman Allah Teala
When the soul's heart is 100% full of glories by Allah and continuous zikr certainly makes that happen, then the individual will be living in a happy world.
sevgili kardeşlerim,
My dear brothers and sisters,
Allah Teala herkesin mutlu olmasını ister.
Allah Ta'ala wants everyone to be happy
İlk olarak yaratmıştır insanı.
and created human beings for that purpose
Vermiştir.
and gave life to them in this planet Earth.
Ama konunun bir başka özelliği var.
But there is something else to that.
Serbest iradeyle
All human beings are also given a free will.
niçin insan ancak kendi iradesiyle yaptığı olaylar dolayısıyla derecat kazanır.
Because people may gain positive degrees or negative degrees due to the things they do through their free will. And that's very important
Kaybettiği dereceler
throughout the life of the individual. If the
gideceği yer
positive degrees are less than the negative ones, the individual ends up in hell.
kazandığı dereceler
Yet, if the positive degrees are more than the negative ones,
Allah
that individual goes to heaven.
öyleyse sevgili kardeşlerim
Then, my dear brothers and sisters,
bu öyle bir vetiridir ki
that is such a concept that
için mutluluk kaynağıdır. Çünkü
that is
zikir yapmak
happiness for every individual because doing zikr is a great joy
apaçık bir şekilde
that brings happiness and joy
öyleyse
to the individual.
insanlar en güzel şekilde yollarına devam edeceklerdir.
And people will carry on their path in a best manner. Individual who is wishing to reach Allah
Dileğin hemen arkasından mutluluğu yaşamaya başlar.
will start experiencing happiness and joy right after the wish.
O kişinin hayatındaki
Till the spirit returns back to Allah, that will be the best time for that individual in his or her life. My dear brothers and sisters, everything is so wonderful.
yarattığı bütün insanların mutlu olmasını isteyen Allah Teala onları zikri
As Allah wants all human beings to be happy, commands them to do zikr, much zikr and continuous zikr.
mutlu olduğunu idrak edince
Once the individual comprehends that he is happy during zikr, then will be needing to do more zikr, and he will realize that he will be even happier in a longer time that he does zikr for a longer time, and therefore will constantly increase the zikr.
öyleyse artan zikre paralel olarak
based on the increasing zikr,
azalacak. Çünkü
vices in the soul's heart will decrease,
afetleri
because glory is getting into soul's heart will eliminate the vices.
hasetler fazlalardır.
These are the virtues accumulating in the soul's heart.
Doldukça
As the soul's heart gets filled with glories,
ve mutluluğu artacaktır.
individual's percentage of happiness will also increase.
Sevgili kardeşlerim,
My dear brothers and sisters, those who get to continuous zikr,
katından nurlar
since the glories will be constantly coming into their hearts from Allah,
artık kalpleri
once they get to continuous zikr, there will be no more darknesses remaining in their soul's heart.
devamlı tazeler,
Glories constantly come in and refresh that joy and happiness in their hearts.
muhtevasını. Kişi başkaları için yaşayan bir insan olur.
And the individual becomes an individual who lives for others
Görür ki
and realizes that
yaşadıkça,
as he lives for others,
onlar için var oldukça
as he is for others,
mutluluğu daha çok artıyor.
his happiness increases even more.
İşte Allah'a yakın insanın mutluluğun artışındaki esas faktör.
And that is the basic factor why the happiness of the individual on the path of Allah increases,
Kapısının ona sağladığı faydalardır.
which is helping other people and living for other people and its benefit to him. They constantly pray for other people.
En güzeli ulaşması için dua ederler.
They pray for them to get to perfection. They ask Allah's help for them.
Onlara hep daha çok zikretmelerini önerirler.
They recommend them to do more zikr
Zikrin onları daha çok mutlu edecek konusunda kanaatleri kesin.
because they are firm that if they increase their zikr, their happiness will increase as well.
Böyle bir dizaynda
Within such a design,
insanoğlunun hayata bakış açısı mutluluğu arttıkça
as people's happiness increase,
değişecektir.
their perspective of life will be different as well.
Sevgili kardeşlerim,
My dear brothers and sisters,
niçin acaba Allah Teala diyor Kur'an-ı Kerim'de insan için
why does Allah Ta'ala say in the Quran there is nothing else for human beings but
çalışma
to work? What Allah considers
o
as work
zikirdir.
is zikr, which is for the happiness of the individual.
Geçimini temin ediyor.
It is also working in physical conditions to survive in this life, but also to live for Allah.
Kim Allah için yaşarsa
Whoever lives for Allah, my dear brothers and sisters,
başka insanlar için yaşayanlar.
they are the ones who live for other people.
Ama en çok mutlu olan da onlardır.
But these are the people who are the happiest,
Başkalarını
simply because
mutlu etmeye,
they are the ones who dedicated their lives to the lives of other
onlar
people.
için yaşarlar.
And they live for them,
Onları mutlu ederler.
and they constantly make them happy.
Onlar
Other people get in touch with them,
sorması istenir.
and they ask them to ask certain things from Allah.
Başkalarının kendisi
And every time
bu ricaları
He delivers these requests to Allah,
seçtirmemesi söz konusu değildir.
it is not possible for Him not to deliver them,
Çünkü onu idare eden kendisi değildir.
because it is not Him actually delivering them, it is Allah who commands the individual.
Ona bir ömür boyunca yardım edecek.
And Allah will help him throughout his life
Yaşamasını temin edecektir.
and will provide that individual to live for Allah.
Mutluluğu yaşatacaktır.
and have that individual experience happiness and joy. Life of this world in happiness and joy. To live for others. My dear brothers and sisters, life of human beings carry on getting to know other people. You may be at every kind of people. He will get to know them one at a time. And he will keep advising them. He wants everyone to get to continuous zikr and experience those beautiful notions of Allah, having the eye and the ear of the heart open and have the ability to talk to Allah. But majority of the time, he's not going to be able to make that happen for others. Because Satan will be pretty successful getting people under his influence. Then we have a result over here.
En sağlam ölçü olan zikri hangi ölçüde kendisine
the more zikr the individual can do in order to be worthy of Allah, happier he will be. Whatever the percentage he can do zikr within 24 hours, that is the percentage of his happiness. In other words, individual who does 12 hours of zikr every day is 50% happy. The one who does 18 hours of zikr, 75% happy. Those who do 24 hours of zikr is 100% happy. That means Allah eliminated every vice in that individual's soul's heart. And that individual wakes up in zikr every morning. That means he spent his night doing zikr of Allah. My dear brothers and sisters, he loves other people, and it will be obvious that he loves them. He is the one who lives for Allah. To live for Allah means to live for others. My dear brothers and sisters, Allah Ta'ala wants everyone to be happy. That's why He commands zikr, much zikr and continuous zikr. And it is the design of Allah, everybody to get to continuous zikr, not to have any more vices in the soul's heart, and for them to be the happiest. Allah Ta'ala loves you all very much. And that love changes from person to person. If you are willing Allah to love you even more, do more zikr, my dear brothers and sisters. And help other people more. Make more people happy. As you make them happy, you will be happy. My dear brothers and sisters, asking Allah Ta'ala to grant upon you infinite happiness, asking that from the Almighty. And we leave your presence willing to meet in that infinite happiness, inshallah.
Esselamu Aleyküm ve Rahmetullah ve Berekatuhu.
I love you all very, very much, my dear brothers and sisters. May Allah bless you all.